Welcome back to the PPUK Podcast, everybody. Today we'll be dealing with one of Prince's shortest albums, Dirty Mind. And with me on this one, we have Paddy.
Hello there.
And Lee.
Hi.
And I'm Chopin, and welcome. So, who wants to start off with this one with your first impressions? I'm guessing Paddy was the first one to listen to this album. Just a sneaking suspicion, is that right?
Probably, yeah. I was pushing to do this one. We had a great session with Controversy, and I think with Controversy you can go in either direction and have a brilliant next conversation. And there's a lot going on around this time, which is extremely prolific in the context of Prince's whole career. So yes, please, I'll kick off with the utter genius and identity marker that is this album. Just a little one from me. When I got into Prince back in 1988 and had heard Purple Rain, had heard Sign of the Times, I went to a little local record shop to buy. I went in and asked. I said, I've just discovered Prince. I love Prince. Could you suggest something I can listen to? Got a copy of Purple Rain, a copy of Sign of the Times. And the gentleman behind the counter, and I'm forever grateful, gave me Dirty Mind and Controversy to buy. So it really sort of hipped me up to this older sound, this younger sound, and just how completely different he could be through the years. But Dirty Mind on its own, I mean, wow. For me, this is the most important album he ever released, hands down. Lee's going to like this. This is the Patrick Troughton of Prince albums. That's a bit of a meta cross reference to Doctor Who.
I was assuming it was.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. So what I mean by this is Patrick Troughton was the most important Doctor ever because he was the first regeneration, the first completely new, clean slate. Does this idea work? This album for me, whilst Prince, the album, had certainly more eclecticism and different things on it that weren't just necessarily in line with For You, this album sounded completely different. This album took balls of steel. This album took a young black artist at 22. He made it himself. He produced it himself almost entirely, played everything at 22 in 1980 in that musical environment, that radio environment. And he did something which was just him, and with songs that he knew would not be played on the radio. And I just can't admire that enough. I just don't have enough admiration in me to think that if there is ever any indication of the purity of this man as an artist and what was in his soul, this is the album for me. And it sounds like nothing else. It's in equal parts. It's thin, cold, daring, funky, spatial. It's just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And then the most important thing, though, is this is the album for me. And I know he changed many times and it was very early in his career, but I can't help but think this is the album. Mostly, there are a few things on the previous two albums, but this is the album which is where he made a choice about who he was going to be as an artist. Mm-hmm. His kind of baseline in terms of his consistent innovation, his, what was the quote? From the spiritual and the carnal, he had his balls in one hand and a Bible in the other. This was quintessential Prince, and this is where he executed that plan for the first time, fearlessly, absolutely fearlessly. Yeah, and everything about the album, it's overt, it's carnal, it's visceral, but it's still funky. Amazing. Please, next. I quite like it, as you can probably tell.
It's really interesting you said cold, because I think of this as one of the, like, there's just something about the bass, and I mean just the EQ bass rather than the instrument, like the bass in the drums and the toms in his voice. There's something so warm about this. There's so like tape sounding about this. Of all of the albums that he ever releases, this is kind of the most, to me, this is kind of weirdly one of the most warm records that he puts out tonally. And even though he uses quite cold synths that judder and pin and push through, and especially like in head, like, not to get too early into it, there's some piercing, like tones in this, but it's bedded on this really warm, intimate kind of small room sound. Like, there's no big echoes on the drums or anything to kind of cheat you into thinking that this was a really like expensive production. It's gone all in on what it is. It owns what it is. It is what I love about this album. I always liked the album, but it took me a couple of listens to put it in my loved tank, because I think it was because I was so into the big bombastic sound at the time. But this is one of the few ones where it doesn't, even if you play it up against some of those bombastic kind of Prince funkier kind of jams, it still sounds warm, rooted, and heavy enough, even with that sparse instrumentation. I think it's one of the albums where he really trusts space. This is where you see him use space as an instrument, and I think that's the best instrument he uses. Of all the instruments he uses on this album, space is the one I think he uses to the most effect, because there's nothing unnecessary on this album. There's not a single track where I think there's an unnecessary sound. And I've come to appreciate this album a lot more on several plays. I think one of the reasons I didn't go hook, line, and sinker into this album the first listen is because I think the first time I listened to this, it was on a cassette which was double-sided, in Mind Controversy, and that I got from the library. I'm pretty sure that that's what it was. It's one of the few ones where I don't have that kind of, oh, I knew where I was when I listened to that album for the first time. I remember that first listen so distinctly. I don't with this one, which is weird because I think it's such a distinctive album in the canon. And anyone that says this is the most important album, it may not be the most important album to me, but I understand where in the space of music, culture, Prince's own legacy, I'm absolutely here for listening to that argument and that space, because I think it is a very important album. Lee, what was your first impressions, or just impressions in general?
Yeah, so obviously as a 90s fan, it's, coming into Prince early 90s. Again, it's one of these albums where you have to go back to. And I love Paddy's little story. It sounded like a scene from High Fidelity. But yeah, no, I think I agree with what Paddy said. It's, one of the most important albums because it solidifies him kind of kicking the door in like 1980. And also me, as with my background, it's like how he puts the whole album together visually and audibly, if that's such a thing. The look of the album and the sound of the album, it's like he's basically, his craft is coming together. He realizes how important, the look of the actual era of that music, or that time of the 80s, and that style of music in the 80s. And but a lot of it is tracks that I get excited about when you're at a Prince party and you'll hear Head or you'll hear Party Up. It's they're the two go-to tracks where I'm like, yay, kind of get excited.
I think it's a very efficient album.
Yeah.
I mean, that can sound like a critique, but it's not. I think it's absolutely inspired, and it's interesting that part of the reason why it is like it is kind of out of necessity because of the budget running out over the past two albums. I'm kind of so glad he overproduced For You and Prince as much as he did, because what it did was, it stripped away the budget, so he had to trust his instinct a lot more because he didn't have anything else to lean back on. And I think that's where, and it's in that moment of, like that kind of teenage necessity of just, I will make do. I'll cut up these tights to make a look. I don't have much money left. I'll cut up this, and that's where the excitement happens a lot of the time. Now, I still stand by what I've always said, that the first 3 albums stand as one, and then we go on to another journey. And the reason I say that is because this is a process of finding, and this is. I think this is the sound of the light switch being turned on. But I think with the next album, he becomes, he knows how to use that gloss that he used too much of to the right effect on top of this. I think what he had was a lot of the first 2 albums, he was honing craft and honing, kind of radio friendly, radio gloss. With this, he finds a heart to place that gloss on, and Controversy 1999 Diamonds, Purple Rain. Also, Freudian
Slip
step
of the
there.
90s tongue there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why that came out. I think I'm just so excited by the rumors of the Super Deluxe. But the Controversy 1999 Purple Rain, I think they are where he's learned to put that kind of gloss and craft on a heart. This is him finding the heart of what is going to make him a star. Not only a star, but an important creative force.
The other thing about it as well, I think it's also reflected in the cover of the album.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah, I think I know there's the nakedness on the horse on Prince and his sort of top shot, but that perhaps I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't see that as particularly a sexy approach. This is sexually oozing Prince, It's almost because he's wearing more, it's kind of even more sharp.
Yeah.
And the G-string, the sort of neck, what do you call it?
Neckerchief.
Neckerchief. And then a trench coat. It's perfection. And the other thing as well, it's always reminded me of a quote. When I did get into Prince all those years ago, the Love Sexy tour gig was on Channel 4. I think it was the week after they showed Purple Rain, when I just lost my mind. Yeah. And they were talking about, the couple of these presenters were talking about sort of did he exploit women? And was there an exploitation thing? And one of the things that always stuck me was the lady who was on it turned around and said, well, perhaps there's an argument he did, perhaps there's an argument he didn't. But what I will say is he wasn't bothered about exploiting himself first. And said, if you look at the Dirty Mind cover album, he's exploiting himself to get a message across. And he's not precious about how he's viewed. He's just honest about how he's viewed. And I love this album cover for that, because it's the same thing as the music. It's so pure and it's so synergistic.
It's interesting that, because I kind of take a slightly different view of the kind of so pure about it, because I think it is genuinely conceived from the gut, and I don't think it's a lie. I don't think it's a falsehood or anything, those kind of things. But there is definitely some conscious pointing towards ambiguities of things that he's not. He's like with the am I black or white, am I straight or gay? One of the things is the hanky in that kind of SME vibe. The neckerchief that you're talking about is actually a code. And it's a kind of 70s and in the late 70s, early 80s scenes, that those were actually gay code about what you were into. So usually they would be in the back pocket. So left was one position, right was the other position. But the neckerchief around the neck like that was versatile. I can be male, female, top, bottom.
Wow, I had no idea. So that's really interesting as well. That adds so much more depth.
I mean, maybe he didn't consciously, maybe he just saw trendy gay guys wearing that stuff and put it on without knowing what the code was. But it's weird that he chose the code that meant both.
Did you see other things, other visuals, which would suggest that he was doing that kind of coded send?
I think the code, it's throughout his, from the get-go. I mean, this is why when I get together with people who are about creative and image based and style based, we can use the word queer so much because it's got nothing to do with whether he sleeps with men or women. The fact is, he can be a completely heterosexual man and still be queer coded, and which is and Dirty Mind having that neckerchief and a thong, topless, like go boy with the match and with the kind of spring mattress, like a SME vibe, is queer coded. Now, and there's color pictures and there's black and white pictures. Now, in the black and white picture, the neckerchief is grey, and grey means something, and in the color pictures, it's red, and red means something. I'm not going to go into it because you don't want to know, but
Things you learn on a Prince podcast.
but this is the thing. I don't think he was unaware of it. I think when he said, "I'm going to portray sex," he portrayed sex, and if he hadn't had references like, you know, I didn't know why she said, "Are you gay?" I said, "No." Are you? And then, am I black or white? Am I straight or gay? He's thinking of these things, and they make their way into the image. There's no, it's straight from the clubs. It's straight from New York clubs, and it's no surprise that this hit the most hardest in LA, New York, Paris, London, where these clubs
that makes
were
sense.
wearing this stuff, and the hanky code was used. So do I everybody kind of gets quite defensive sometimes when you bring up this stuff and they say, are you saying that Prince is gay? And it's like, well, absolutely not. But what I'm saying is he appropriated, as much as people he appropriates something from that scene to make a statement about versatility and femininity and masculinity that's really interesting for a straight black man in 1980, which makes this record even more amazing. I think it's amazing. I think it's great.
It's also in context of the time of the ambiguity of other pop artists coming through at that period and afterwards, of that ambiguity
and I think also the artists that he's looking at around this time, the kind of the Gary Newmans, Depeche Modes, and stuff like that are coming through, and Judas Priest, and like they've all got the same. They're using it all, but they're using it very knowingly.
I think you can see from his writing, just from a pure song perspective as well, that he's sophisticated enough to understand a wider universe of sexuality. It's irrelevant what his preferences are. That's him. That's just him. I've never, and I can't say that with any particular measurement. You just feel, if you're a Prince fan and you've listened to his stuff for years and years, that's just him. He's a sexual being, and that's it. Other artists aren't necessarily.
And here's the thing: he said it before, that sexuality is an extension of his spirituality. So, and I think he even saw the wild sexuality as not being split. I think this is just like, this isn't a particularly spiritual record as well, but I think Controversy is where he starts to marry sexuality and spirituality. I think this is where he gets brave enough to mention the sexuality plainly, which is another reason why I think Controversy is the start of a new step, as opposed to this being the start of a new step. I think this is the threshold of revelation for him.
This is like the smashing through the wall breakthrough. This is like the statement. I think the Controversy is having had the statement, is the considered work and an amalgamation of everything.
I think this is that one of the everybody has that kind of threshold leap in learning where suddenly you've been frustrated and you come against a wall and you're kind of knocking on this wall, and then you have this moment where the world turns on its axis just because you've looked at it a different way, and you're like, and sometimes this is about learning. Sometimes it's about the way you look at a person, whether it's like, oh, they really do care, or oh, they really do not, like that moment from which nothing can ever be the same again. And I think I think that's kind of the biggest praise you can say, beyond any kind of musicality, behind the fact that this sounds like a great record and it's just such a good listen. It's actually a threshold leap. And not only is it a personal one for Prince, I think it's a cultural one for us all.
And the only other note I've got on the album generically, and again, I'm without Andy. Hello, Andy, when you're listening. I know I might be slightly on my own here, but for me, this was the first album in the absolute golden run of for what's for me the golden run, which is this to Love Sexy. For me, there's something particularly special about that. I'm not saying it's necessarily better than everything else, but I think there is something slightly indefinable because of the innovation and singular identity that sticks through those albums, which kind of peters away after that. Not to any detrimental effect. And hey, I love the 90s too.
Look,
That's just me.
You don't need to defend yourself or your opinion. I get what that golden run is. That golden run is both, it's either financially or creatively a step forward each time, and I get why people see, and critically, Dirty Mind to Love Sexy gets that much love. I do. I absolutely, I don't question it. I mean, I joke around about it, this versus this and what have you. Yeah, of course. But my favorite is what my favorite is. Part of it is because I got into Prince when I did, and that was the album that got into, and you can never replace that.
No.
Those kind of imprints are what they are. And if I was born in the 50s, I probably would have felt the same way about Are You Experienced or Sgt. Pepper's as I do about Diamonds and Pearls of Symbol. If I was born, 5 to 10 years earlier, 5 years earlier, I'd probably feel the same about Purple Rain to Sign of the Times. If I was born, another 5 years earlier, I'd probably feel the same about pre-Purple Rain Prince. It is what it is, and you kind of sometimes have to step back from what you love and what is your favorite and what you find the greatest to what is the cultural, wider, more important. Dirty Mind is that, and I would never question. I know I would never question that, and it's a great album as well. Don't get me wrong.
As a 90s Prince fan, not saying that I'm not an 80s one, but it's, that 80s run that Paddy's mentioned, it's the foundation that the 90s albums are built on. We wouldn't have some of the tracks in the 90s if it wasn't tracks like Housequake and, Head and stuff like that. You wouldn't, and Party Up. There is that foundation that certain tracks are built on, and there's some synergy in 90s tracks that you can sister or pair up with tracks in the 80s.
I would say it like this, and it's his music is a tree, and is your favorite part the trunk or the branch or the leaf?
Or the whole tree,
or the whole damn tree, or the roots. Because I think this is just, I think if we're talking about For You, Prince, and Dirty Mind, I think that is Dirty Mind is just bursting out, is the seedling bursting out above the earth. And then the rest of it up to the 90, Love Sexy is the trunk, and then the kind of Diamonds and Pearls and everything, it becomes the branch. I mean, if you look at it like that, you'll have your favorite part, but I think they're all very important. Even if you think the golden run starts with Dirty Mind, it's all nothing without For You or the kind of the pre stuff. It's all built on foundations. And there's definitely technique, there's definitely styles and kind of live parts. The Diamonds and Pearls stage is basically a kind of rehash of the Purple Rain stage, if in certain ways. It's the two tiers and the ramps, thing. I mean, the style just kind of evolves and evolves and evolves. I just have a particular favorite part of the evolution that happens when I got into Prince, but that's imprinting. But this album is very much, I thank this album for releasing the Prince that was before this.
Well, it literally is metaphorically, it's the trench coat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the trench coat, the For You and the Prince album is the trench coat.
Yeah.
And the Dirty Mind is him opening the trench coat.
Exactly.
What's underneath the trench coat? It's like, hey, whoa.
Thank you for flashing us, Prince.
Yeah, that's a very good way of looking at it.
And thank you for having something to show when you flashed us.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all this, he's holding the trench coat and everything. It's like, what's beneath? And that's how I kind of see the album. It's like, what's beneath the album? And it's like, this is what the album is about.
And I think that's a wonderful thing, but that when you just leave him in his own house with just instruments, he comes up with the goods. And I think that's why we have Paisley Park, is because of how he realized how well he did when he had this album, like when he had to do it in his warehouse, and I think that process, trust in that process, and something like this, coming up with the goods without the big studio, is why we have such a creative approach when we're looking at Let's Go Crazy being recorded in a warehouse. Like, he's like, well, it worked for Dirty Mind. Why didn't it work for that?
I got a confession also to make of like when I was in Minneapolis and we went to Uptown, I was singing Uptown.
Yeah, of course. Damn.
You're in Minneapolis and you see the sign, you're at Uptown, you just start singing it. So
I was singing Paisley Park as we were driving up to Paisley Park. And when we rounded the corner to Calhoun Square, I was singing Calhoun Square.
You realise and again, that's another point about the album is like the Minneapolis connection, and it's always there. It's
And speaking of Minneapolis and the Minneapolis sound, let's go into the first track, Dirty Mind, which is completely Minneapolis sound. Anyone want to take this song first?
No, I'll let you go on this one. I think your eyes are going really wide, so it's like...
The first time I heard this one, I think, was when I got the VHS collection. And so I was seeing it when I heard it, because I know I didn't have the album when that VHS collection came out. And it was... Oh, no, tell a lie. The first time I heard it was live with the live sexy thing, with the medley. So some of these songs were kind of familiar. So the album was kind of a strange listen because I did know some of the titles beforehand and was used to a certain sound towards them that was a little bit more intricate. Love Sexy Band being what it was. So Dirty Mind, what a little synth riff to start it off.
I think that with all Prince albums, there's always that killer number one track. And going back to my High Fidelity references, it's always the track one of the first album kind of thing. It's always
fast, fast, slow. It seems to be always fast, fast, slow. Like the pulse of this, like and just before the kind of like the synth riff comes on, which I believe is this one. It's Dr. Fink's
co-write.
Yeah, he was a co-write. It's his synth, and he's in true to form. He plays that a couple of that synth riff or a couple of them. Comes back the next day, and Prince has written a song. And what an opener of a statement!
Yeah, for me, it's the song. It's the song which kicked off 80s Prince. But going back to a similar narrative about the album, obviously, just the simplicity of it. It's essentially, the whole song's essentially two parts. It's really catchy. It's very synthy. But the thing is, you sort of listen to this. If you'd had nothing else to have ever heard of Prince's other than For You and Prince, when you heard this, obviously it's absolutely impossible for us to listen to this and think about it in the stark context that it would have been thought about then, with no idea of 1999 and Purple Rain and beyond. But and Controversy, obviously. He's slipping up again, you see. But you mentioned Gary Newman and Depeche Mode earlier.
Yeah.
And you can read up about this, and there were certain things he was listening to at the time that if you listen to Prince and For You, there's no real traces of those things there yet. And then all of a sudden, you have this from that step, that tangential just movement, and it's phenomenal. And it doesn't sound like an experiment either. It sounds like a cold, and I agree exactly what you say. There is a coldness in terms of the space and the way he uses sound and the way things are played and put together and produced. But there is a warmth inherent. I mean, to me, there's just a warmth inherent from the perspective of, hey, these are analog synths from the early 80s. You can't help it, If you digitize them, they still sound like they're off a record ultimately.
Yeah, exactly.
But not only was this entirely different, it was a brilliant song. It was as if, so now he's sort of some post-punk new wave stuff. And oh my God, this is possibly a number one hit if you listen to it. It's so catchy. Yeah, fantastic.
In any era of Prince, he could be influenced by things of that era and still own that style and claim it as part of it, but it's still Prince, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
With rap.
Absolutely.
He can still, you can trace the elements of it, but it's also his stamp on it, and his stamp is really is that.
You're pretty much describing why we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, pretty much.
And also, it's kind of arguably sort of a disco beat. When it comes in, it's like there's disco there as well. It's amazing. It's amazing. Sorry, Sheps, go on.
No, this is that's kind of an interesting thing you say, because I think it's interesting on Prince where he comes so close to this kind of stuff with Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad. Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad is so close to being this kind of punky bratty thing, but it's still too smooth.
There's a swing in that song, which I think's also on Bambi.
Yeah.
For a set, or even stuff like I Feel For You. That's not here. That one aspect, don't get me wrong, I kind of see what you're saying.
He's like with those songs, he's edging so close to what this is, but he's still trying to make it like radio.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think that radio sensibility is stopping him from going to this place.
He knew what would be a really good pop record for that time. He understood each era. He'll understand a moment that emphasizes that era that he will catch on, and he knows what would be played on radio. He understood.
He's got a good radio ear.
Yeah, exactly.
That gene and genetic marker in his body was always there. It was always there, and he could. To the point where at times, as we know, as he got into later years and was a bit more self-indulgent, he'd occasionally just throw a hit out to sort of shrug and go, well, to hell with your record deal. I could do this if I want.
Yeah.
So
much love to Dinner and Dolores.
Absolutely. So it was very much...
A Prince joke that only Prince fans would get.
It was very much on show here anyway. Very much.
Yeah.
And then he hits the beats of the second song. It's like, and then he probably even supersedes it in terms of poppiness. It's the bonkers.
Yeah, and also, like kind of airs of like polyamory. So it's not even like he's putting aside that whole kind of like traditional kind of male. I've got my many women type stuff, and it's really revolutionary for him. Going, it's like I don't care.
That Prince joke of like, "Where's heels can still steal your woman."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, God, what can you say? It's like going back to the first track, though. There is something about the way it rises and falls that is almost like edging. It's like edging you for like with that. Da, 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 da. Oh, and lay down comes and it comes back down and you rest, and then it works and works and works and works and then just rest, and then it's not until the end where he starts that bratty screaming that it like you finally get the kind of the payoff, and it's first track brilliant, but that opening riff to the second. So When You Were Mine, who wants to take this one?
Go on then.
Go on, Paddy.
If you're forcing me.
Yeah.
Perfect pop song. This always makes me think of Raspberry Beret, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
It's just a pop hit. It's a brilliant, effortless, almost not lightweight in any negative sense, but it's like using real basics without going mad to write something which hits home harder than a truck. You have the nice bouncy sort of tom-based drum intro, which immediately sort of separates it from Dirty Mind because it sounds more organic, and then just a lovely chord sequence and melodic hooks for the verses and chorus. It sort of couldn't be any simpler. I love Fink's solo. I think that's nice to sort of hear that.
And I love that cha-ching in the background, that cha-ching, ching, ding, ching, ching, ching.
Yeah.
That kind of 50s doo-wop, ding, da-dan, dun, ding, da-dan.
That's what I was going to say. It's that singing in the car 1950s, bum, 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 Mr. Semen.
It's kind of like the doo-wop-y kind
cheerleader, yeah.
Yeah, no, go with that.
There's a couple of these kind of songs that he's done over the years that I think fit in this mold, and I think that's interesting. You said Raspberry Beret because the things I was thinking about was Raspberry Beret, Take Me With You, Can't Stop This Feeling. I got Cherry Cherry, and even the one You Want to See later on. So there's this kind of like template for a song of a kind of swingy song.
American Diner.
Yeah,
Milkshake,
and they're not
vibe.
always, and the lyrics don't always fit the smoothness and happiness of the tune. But I think this is a real. It's also a fun riff to play.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I think, and you mentioned it at the beginning, you'd probably heard Dirty Mind on the Love Sexy Tour footage prior to the album versions. I suppose it lends itself to some of the minimalism, but they're also scalable in a live sense. And he's done so much with them. And I love that. Again, Dirty Mind sounds fantastic on like the 1999 tour when it's played. He speeds it up and it's a lot heavier and sounds bigger.
Yeah.
But then you hear the version like the Love Sexy tour with all the brass on it. They're so scalable. They sound fantastic. And When Your Mind's one of those as well, when you like fully brass it up and add a little bit more crunch to the guitars. I always think of it only does it the once, I suppose, but the version he played at the Minneapolis Dance Theatre benefit after he'd played Let's Go Crazy for the first time and he hammers into this. I remember the first time I heard that bootleg, I was like, oh, Jesus, this is good at that point. It's like, wow.
I think I love the version that he does on Act 2 where it's like it's so drenched and so over distorted and so reverb. It's such a big it's such a big sounding guitar for such a and really reverby for such a like kind of a small is small song the best way to describe it? Simple song.
Yeah, it's a pop song rather than a song on a themed concept album. It is a pop song. Yeah.
Sorry, Paddy. What I was going to ask was, do you perform any of the songs from Dirty Mind live?
We've done Head in the past. We've done Uptown in the past. We've done Take Me With You in the past. When You Were Mine. Sorry, I
polluted the waters there.
This is the slip of the
We're all over the place.
What's going on? Yeah, but no, I those three. We haven't played any of the others live or anything. No, I'd love to do that. I mean, God, if I had the time and the money, and everybody else had the time, all I'd do is learn everything beginning to end and go out and pick them on the night.
I guess that leaves Do It All Night. This took the longest to kind of settle in because when you've got like giant melodies and great grooves like Uptown, Head, Party Out, Dirty Mind, When You Were Mine. Some of the slighter songs or the less controversial songs took a little while to kind of get around to listening to, but it's got this lovely chirpy start up of the synth, and actually I really under listened to that bass and undervalued that bass, that boom 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 boom, and with that like this chirpy synth, and it's a very simple song, and I'm not sure I have much beyond that to say about it. It's other than it's a great bridge between the two songs that come before and after, with a fantastic little chirpy synth and a great bass line. But it's kind of like one of those, because it's such a short album, this and the next song are pretty much over before they begin, in a way, and they're kind of like an amuse-bouche of a song.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like we mentioned before we started recording on the podcast about the length of this album. It's 8 tracks and it's 30 minutes long. It's there's not.
The 12-inch of America is almost longer than this.
That's what we were saying, wasn't it?
I think I kind of agree. Yeah, I agree with you on this one, Shopes. I think it feels, as Andy always says, an ordinary Prince song is something quite special. But
you say his name 3 times, he'll turn up on the podcast.
Yeah. Hey, well, welcome.
I think it feels a little bit ordinary compared to everything that's on here, but that's very contextual to this piece of work, specifically as an album. And if anything, a little bit twee. I don't know.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a fascinating choice for a set opener on Dirty Mind Tour, because there's so many other things I would have thought, why on earth did he use? I mean, did he use it because he felt it was an auxiliary song that he wanted to play live, but he just didn't know where else to put it? Because the thing is, there are so many songs that are so distinctly good in different ways, they can literally go anywhere. But it's like, it always struck me as a little bit of a strange...
I guess it's a good mission statement for a gig. We're going to do it all night. It's a good way to... good first line to say to her. And also, it's not lacking in gumption. I mean, it does kind of get going again, like Dirty Mind, the song. Like, it does go up. It does get this little up before it goes down. That a long time wanna bring it home to you, and then it kind of falls down. And I think the choruses are just kind of... I think because the choruses are like flatter than the bridges, I think there's some way why it didn't stick in my ear as much as some of the other more immediately catchy stuff. But it's still a good song in the right place. Nice little sonic bridge, and I like that it doesn't go on for any longer than... I think if it was longer, I would have tired of it. But it's the perfect length.
It does have a few things going for it. I love the 16th key part, the busy key part. Like you say, it's really nice bass on it. There's one of the things I noticed about a piece of lyric. It's sort of almost, it feels like possibly a British-ism. I've been waiting such a bloody long time. That doesn't sound like him. That sounds like him making an affectation. And if it was listening a new wave and some of the British stuff, perhaps that's something that's been derived and sourced there. I don't know, a little.
I would think that, because I think there's a lot of new wave elements in this album, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
And I love the ending, the little filter. It's very lush, and it sort of sort of winds its way out. But I don't know. I again, if I was forced to say which one I can manage without, it would be Do It All Night. But again, you've had two massive, in my opinion, massively effective, distinctly new stylistic songs for him. And then you have this, perhaps in the sort of profile, the graft profile of the album. It might be the right place, the right song, the right place, the right time. I don't know.
You need a drink of water between courses.
Yeah.
To appreciate... I think sometimes I think this could be that, and I don't mean that in any.
No, well, this is the thing with Prince. It's so difficult to say that. Okay, I don't quite like this song as much as this because it sounds negative. But I mean, you've no choice. You've got to. Your subjectivity has to.
I mean, it's the difference between going, this is a really good song, and going, oh my God, this song changed my bloody life. It's like we're talking about the difference, but we're not talking the difference between, I like that song, and we're talking about the difference between, it's a really good song, and oh my God, I realized who I am because of this song. It's one of those things. The next one, who wants to start with this one? Do you want to go back, Paddy? Because I know Lee...
Hey, I'm happy to. This is a song, again, I must admit, I never really warmed too heavily, and I don't think I spent enough time with my arm around it. I listened to this a lot more and put this further up in my playlists, and I've kind of grown to like it. This is... I might have... one of you would punch me in the face, probably, if you sat next to me about what I'm going to say, but this sort of sounds like... it's like that little gentle guitar break, and there's aspects of this sound a bit like Huey Lewis than used to me. The way that it's... So there is an aspect of that, and I do love... I know. The album 4, I love that album for a bunch of reasons, and there's little bits of that. I mean, that came after, so, old props. But there's a sort of aspect of that. But this feels like a nice, simple ballad-esque song for Prince. It doesn't feel like he's... It feels like he's sat there with his feet up in front of the fire, an acoustic guitar on his knee, and he's right, I'm going to knock out a nice, pleasant little song now. And it's kind of... This is one of the warmer moments of the track, of the album sonically as well. And again, that gentle little guitar break's just lovely, simple, succinct, perfectly fitting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really like. It's really grown on me recently. Really grown on me since we first started talking about doing this.
I didn't get into this song until the One Night Alone tour and the version that he did on the One Night Alone tour.
Of course, yes.
Stunning falsetto. That just like some that when he goes, "Please come home," and hits that high note, it's just like, oh my God. And then I was like, okay, I need to re-listen to this song having felt that emotion with that thing. And you know what? And I'm going to say something that's far more controversial than the Huey Lewis and the News. For me, and I
Things I
mean
wouldn't
this,
expect to hear on this podcast, but go on.
I know this is something you weren't expecting, a reference you weren't expecting on this podcast. So I have to clarify. I say this with all the love. To me, it sounds like, you know, when like Chaz and Dave did ballads?
You're invoking Chaz and Dave?
No, but do you know that Ain't No Pleasing You? Remember the way that the drums kicked it, like in, and the sound of those drums and the bass. And no, but I genuinely, absolutely, 100% love, and they are actually amazing musicians. Like, so this, I know, like sometimes this, for those listening from abroad, Chaz and Dave are pretty much like, they're kind of famous for being like a kind of East Endy, pubby,
wow.
kind of piano band.
All I can think about.
They do some beautiful ballads as well, and they were kind of session musicians for Joe Meek as well. So I'm trying to do this with these two.
Snooker loopy nuts are we? Have a banana. Dun, dun, dun.
Rabbit. Oh, you won't stop talking. Why don't you give it a rest, rabbit?
Oh man, do
you know what I mean? Like,
with no disrespect to anybody else, the British listeners will probably take something really weird from this, but no, they'll get it. They will get it.
Okay, you need to like just if anything else, just YouTube Chaz and Dave, and
yeah.
But the song to listen to is Ain't No Pleasing You. That's what I mean. Like, I don't mean like rabbit. I mean like Ain't No Pleasing You. Like, it's...
Well...
Did you expect that reference to Chaz and Dave with Dirty Mind?
That is stellar tangentialization. That's just all over the place.
But it does. When the drum comes in, it's this kind of soft roll in. And I mean it with such affection. I have a I think because some of the hits were quite novelty, their musicianship was kind of downplayed because they were session guys for Joe Meek.
Yes, they were.
And that's the kind of caliber I'm really talking about. Or when I listen to it back, that's what I was as discombobulated when that reference popped into my own head as you were all when I said it out loud, because I was like, wait a minute, why am I thinking of Chaz and Dave? This is Dirty Mind. But that's aside, it made me listen to this song anew, that One Night Alone version. It took me all the way back, and then I kind of was like, no, this isn't just a couple of slow songs before Uptown comes in. This is actually a really good little song. It may, like sometimes and this is the kind of motto of this album, is sometimes you don't need a lot to say a lot. And I think Got a Broken Heart again, once I kind of allowed it the space to be on its own, gave a lot.
But that's also, this is a lot about Prince, because how many times did people go and see him live and they'd hear something they've not heard before, or an old track that they've not heard before, and they would then go back, you would then go through the archives of like, what is this track? Or, certain, especially as a 90s fan, you when I saw him live on the Gold Tour a bit, he performed something and I'd be like, I don't know that. And you'd go back and you'd want to try and find that song, and that happened.
Exactly. I mean, it's just, and that's the perfect tour to think, because half the time we were hearing these songs live before they came out, and that was another one where it was just like this really kind of broken, flowery version of "I Love You and Me" on that one. That made me think again. But definitely One Night Alone tour.
Like when he was on that Canadian show and he'd done a version of dance music, sex, romance, and it's like, that whole version there, you see that and you think it's a new track. That's the other thing, he would perform an old track that you would think was new, and it's actually that's his back catalogue.
Absolutely. And sometimes the song that comes out you think is new, and then you realize it's like he wrote it in. I mean, that's what these super deluxes are showing us, is that we thought, I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man was written right there and then, and it could have been on this album and it would have fit. That's the crazy thing. Are you ready to take the lead yet, Lee, or on this one?
No, I love it. It's one of my, it's one of the tracks you listen to in the car. Where you going? Sorry, I love it. No, it's just great. It's just it's a disco track. It's everyone dancing. Oh, yeah, sorry. I loved it. No, it's one of my go-to songs in my Prince playlist. If you're in a good mood, it's one of them ones
It's
I apologise to everyone that sits on the train when I commute, because I'll be singing it while I'm listening to it. Yeah, no, it's a great pop tune. It's Prince. It's a pop tune. Love it. What else can you say? It's ice cream.
Paddy?
Yeah, great track. Great. Another good show opener that was used on 2 tours. And again, those snare singles are just machine gun brilliance. It's a very simple thing, but again, you find all these kind of simple things used so effectively by Prince over the years. I kind of like the way it's the sort of crunchy bits of guitar on it are used very subtly on the album, which I really like. It's a lovely little rundown at the end of the verses, particularly nice. Just a really nice and a mix of instrumentation and style. Another great single. The riff's great. The sort of general groove is great. That thumping pre-chorus and chorus. The breakdown. It's just, absolutely fantastic song.
I love the way that the guitar leads doubles the synth.
Yes.
To create this kind of really gritty kind of like sharp.
Yes, sharp is the word.
Sharp.
Yeah.
But still warm sound of like dun, 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 dun. And the storytelling of it, of like it sets a place, like it's really kind of creates a geography of this area, and and a kind of mythology of uptown Minneapolis, and it's just like these kind of these sharpshooting people, and what's really interesting is, think about this: in 1980. Somebody saying, are you gay, in the middle of the street, and rather than taking it as a threat or as insult, going, no, are you? Yeah. And it's just like, you can take it as a sharp-witted thing, but it's also it's a really inclusive and very we don't care. We don't care.
Yes.
And that is not, and if you think about the milieu of the time, we're talking about just as the AIDS crisis is about to kick off. It's a really kind of, this guy with a handkerchief around his neck, coded in in stockings, going, no, you, is very is incredibly revolutionary.
It's also, it's referencing a part of Minneapolis, where it's like there's no, it's about prejudice and racism of, it's a place where metaphorically you can go and it's like it's carefree almost.
And this is part of the whole thing of creating the 2 other bands, creating the mythology of a scene and a place, because I'm not sure, as many of the people of many of Prince's band members have said, Minneapolis was not without its racism downtown.
No,
and it wasn't, and it was. I'm sure in 1980, kind of walking down the street, if somebody's saying, "Are you gay?" I'm doubt that they were going, I'm just asking because you look really cool or whatever. It's a threatening. That can be a threat. In downtown in 1980 could be a threatening question.
Yeah.
But he morphs this world where this stuff is happening and plays it back to you, like, this is a cool place, this is a cool scene, I'm going to make up this scene that's happening and mythologize.
I'm sure it's not intentional, but it probably does marry up. You have the discoisms, as Lee's mentioned in the song, and as a form of music, disco was probably one of the least racially stereotyped forms of music, because disco was a musical style that you had performers of all colours and creeds, and it was fantastic for that. Such a shame he didn't like. Well, I'm really biased because I love cheesy disco funk over a lot of forms of funk, but
I don't know why, but I'm currently going for a whole disco 70s, 80s vibe. I've been listening to a whole load of...
man, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.
I don't know why. It's just been
But there's plenty of disco there. I love another sort of, for me, a disco affectation, though not probably an obvious one, is the synth filters. I can't remember what the name of the effect is on the second sort of breakdown towards the end. That sort of metallic filter going on, and I love all that sort of stuff. It's so of the time, but it doesn't sound bad. It's not of the time in the way that some uses of older 80s analog synths sound that way. This doesn't, to me.
Yeah.
Still sounds relatively fresh. It doesn't even sound good because it's retro in inverted commas.
No,
it just sounds quite fresh.
Good. The other thing as well is like the joy of just singing, the joy of people just singing black, white, Puerto Rican, everybody just a freaking good time to roll in. Oh my God, you want to be there. You want to be there. And you know, like this is kind of just at the cusp of like that kind of not long after this is that whole disco sucks movement, which was, you know, where they're burning records in stadiums, and it's a very it's a very hateful, racist, homophobic kind of tint to the disco sucks thing, because it's like black and fag music is taking over, and we need more white rock like Judas Priest. Ironically, like, we need more guys in leather with guitars. It's like, hate to tell you, honey, but like. But it was like, it's really interesting. I can see why this went the way it did when he played this with the Rolling Stones, you know, like when he's playing this stuff with the Rolling Stones, and that tells you what...
I've listened to that gig so many times to try and work. It's so difficult because it feels like such an artifact lost in the mists of time that we're almost like opening a crack portal in space and time just to listen to this scratchy recording in the distance. But that gig was going all right until he played Jack You Off, as far as I'm concerned. I think he was winning. I honestly do. I think he was doing all right.
Because they didn't think he was talking about a girl.
No. Because I think a lot of it was the slightly more overt nature of that song sexually, and I think it just frightens. Well, I've got to be really careful what I say now, because again, I don't want to fall into being the thing that I don't like in terms of generalities. But I think that audience, I think it would have been a little bit too challenging and outside of what that audience would voluntarily listen to lyric-wise. And it wasn't Jack You Off isn't just implying something, it's saying it overtly. And I think that's what's, I'll use the word scared, that audience. Because let's face it, most prejudice is just about being scared of something you don't understand.
Exactly.
The unknown and this peculiar view that you can't just be yourself with other people being themselves, and that's both safe, appreciated. The whole mentality. But again, that gig was not that, because you had a load of people who were probably of a narrower type of view, group mentality. But I still think that when he played like Bambi, because it was relatively heavy and he didn't use his falsetto, and then I think he did When You Were Mine and he didn't use his falsetto, I didn't hear boos and stuff at that point particularly. It was when he went to Jack You Off, and I think, I don't know, I think he sort of, it was a song choice thing. I don't know. What would a world look like in which Prince played on that bill and got massively rave reviews? I mean, holy shit.
I don't think it was simply song choice. I think they were kind of like going, okay, you know, like it was polite up until that point. I don't think they were kind of digging it. I think they were polite, like, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't going as far as to saying that they were digging it, but it was.
I think it was just like that. There was the one step beyond the thing pale, and it was just like, yeah, we're not.
Mm-hmm.
But that gig in itself shows you where this album lands. you know, the landscape, the musical landscape to which the
Yeah.
album lands. Because we think of the 80s one way, but like where this lands in, usually decades are the decades they are from the second or third year as opposed to the first year. You know, like it's not like 1979 into midnight 1979 into 1st of January 1980 and the whole decade goes neon. You know, there's a real evolution at play, and we're kind of still kind of wiping, you know, we've still got the kind of the excesses of the 70s still rolling around. We've still kind of got a depressed music industry in some ways, but it's an interesting meteorite that lands in that landscape, this album. And Uptown is an interesting piece of, I wonder if it's the first piece of Prince mythologizing. You know, beforehand he's just singing songs. And is there any other song before this that tries to kind of describe a world, an alternate world, or a kind of a world through Prince's lens? Or is he just doing love songs?
An early Paisley Park type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting
Paisley
thought.
Park. This might be the start of the Prince self-mythologizing.
He's looking further afield, isn't he?
Yeah.
In a way. That's interesting, yeah.
He's not just looking for, he's looking further afield for people to invite back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and saying, come along, this is this great place. You got to come.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I think with that said, I think this is the one that Lee, you said you did want to start with, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it's one of the positive memories of my first Prince party, and it was almost...
Careful.
Wait a minute. I don't remember that part.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just remember dancing and singing.
Song, and then I realised, what am I talking about? Oh, yeah, I'm actually talking about the title. And this is going to...
I mean...
And then I was going to say about a crowd of people, and then I was like...
It's a full disclaimer.
No, it was just... I think it was, 2013? And it had that whole... No, I was about to say Club 54, not...
Studio 54.
But it had that whole disco vibe.
Yeah.
And I just remember we were all dancing in sync. And it was almost like that, you know, the handbag on the ground. There was no handbag on the ground, but all being in like a circle. And we were kind of like
getting so much worse. So the song we're talking about is Head.
And then everyone just syncing with the DJ, and then it would be like we were all like Head. Yeah, and
we were dancing in sync.
We were dancing in sync. Yeah, that was the everything you say in this podcast will be used against you in a court.
You said you wanted to start this song.
But yeah, no, it's such a positive memory, and I remember it's always a good track to play at a party, and it has that disco, you know, that whole era of the little bit at the beginning. It has that vibe to it.
I mean, it's just a monster jam. I feel like I should describe a bit more of the song before I go into this part, but I think I'm just going to go straight for there. That synth solo, Matt Fink's synth solo. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So good. I remember first time I listened to.
I've got written in my notes, that in capital letters, Dr. Fink solo.
Yes. That Dr. Fink solo. Yeah, it is so good. Oh,
we'll send him a link to this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I've got to be honest to you. Like with most Prince doing most of the instruments on all of this, it is a spectacular little like feather in the cap for Matt Fink to go.
Oh man, yes.
Yeah, but the thing that they remember is my synth solo, and it's just like I remember the first time listening to it on headphones. I think it was the Hits 2 CD I got for Christmas, and that's the first time I heard that song. I think yes, and oh my God. The live versions of this, the way that it's been extended out, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you already know. But the New York 1981 at the Ritz, I believe it's, where he's wearing the green top
with the little beads
With the
dodges out, but
and the
brilliant.
hotels.
Yeah.
That guitar, the way that guitar.
What proto Prince solos.
Yeah.
It wasn't. He never lost anything, but he just developed and evolved. But listening to him play guitar then is so special on those shows. He's just amazing. He's on another planet. He's so sort of unique and lascivious with his playing. He's amazing.
And the way he took that performance and like refined it to what it became at the Detroit Cobo Arena gig.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my God, Head is just like such a groove. And the storyline itself is just lovely.
Yeah. one for the kids. One for the kids at bedtime. Marvelous.
I think that's one for the reason why you have kids.
Yes, well.
I want to your father.
Now, this song, I love this, and the song that comes after it. I unashamedly love the t-shirt printing aspect of. There are a couple of notorious songs in here. There are a couple of song subjects that a 22-year-old black guy who wants radio play in 1980 probably is best, unfortunately in the world, is probably best to avoid. And he smashes the shit out of it. And like I said, the amount of admiration for that bravery and that. And none of this is fucking tokenistic either. This is absolutely pure. He's wanting this. These are the songs he's wanting to write, and they're coming from his well of creativity.
He doesn't deliver it like comedy. He doesn't deliver like he doesn't deliver a sister like he's a teenager saying the dirtiest thing. Like
absolutely not. It's not shock tactics, isn't this?
No.
I'm sure people will argue it is, but it isn't. It's pure.
What
rhymes
with funk?
Yeah, exactly. But it's just but then so you take that away though. Take away the lyrics, and you've got one of the most quintessential Prince grooves of all time. It's completely irresistible. And then you add on to it what's being conveyed. It's just like, it's just amazing. Pure fucking sex. Full stop. The whole thing is just amazing. And it's a song about blowjobs. I mean, it's just insane. But it's genius because it's so daring, and because the qualitative aspects of the song, the groove and everything on top of it are so good. And a nice handy little segue at the end as well, using the synths again with a few affectations into a song of equal and possibly slightly more multidimensionally, preposterously notorious. Man's a genius.
The way that you get the crescendo with that. I'm morning and I give you.
Oh yes.
Oh my God, that part. It's like when they're playing that on the dance floor now. That's a moment. It's so joyful.
And just the drops where it drops the beat to the open hats and then resets the groove again. And I always loved the way when he did the triplets on the Love Sexy tour. All that stuff. It's just, and again, so scalable, so much space to play. Shove real brass on it. Oh, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. One of the biggest, I mean, again, this is personal and very personal to me, and Prince is entitled to his beliefs. I have no issues with that at all. But this is one of the songs in the sets that I missed in later times because it's timeless. The groove is timeless. The sound is timeless.
I think one of the gigs, I can't remember which one, he played the sample of this.
Oh, it always annoyed me that. And like, if you're not going to do it, don't do it. But,
oh no, I kind of liked it. I liked the sample teaser. But then there was part of me where it was just like showing you what you're missing.
If it's coming from a place of if his conviction is to not to dissociate with something that he's moved on from, which I think in life you can You can change direction. You can be more thoughtful. You can have genuine experience and all these kind of things. So there's nothing. It's not like, oh well, you're a hypocrite, because it's not that at all. It's part of the journey. But if there is genuine conviction behind the reason why you don't play it, don't give me a few bars of Erotic City. Don't give me a few bars of Darling Nikki. Don't give me a few bars of Nasty Girl. I was getting there. Don't give me a few bars of Head. If you're gonna give me a few bars, play the fucker.
I'll tell you what, there was 1 minute where I was like, my jaw was to the floor when you played a little sample of that house mix of Get Off, that and then he stopped and I was like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to sing. Just groove over that for a second, you know.
In spite of feeling like that and saying that, in the end, you know, it's his kingdom. They're his songs. He can do what he wants. Yeah.
So this next one was, again, like just like the previous song. It's a song that like is possibly even filthier, I would say, or at least more controversially filthy, Sister. And what gets me is how he again doesn't sing these words like a kind of schoolboy getting away with it, like I said something. He gives conviction and pathos and full story to, you know, like, you know, at the end of it he's confused, he's kind of, it's not all like kind of haha I did this thing. It's a really, for like 1 minute whatever of the song, it's, you know, there's a lot in there, and I think it again, what a thing to get away with.
It's beyond brave. Is this a song about incest? Is just saying it? It's slightly uncomfortable, but if you listen to it, it isn't. I don't think so anyway. And he never did anything else like this. I think stylistically, this is light, thin punk. And it fits so well. And it's not, and again, it's 90 seconds long. What better? Yeah, it's punk song, 90 seconds long, right? I always kind of, I think it's sort of unavoidable. You tend to zero in again on like the Love Sexy tour and this live version. It was a showstopper. You know.
That spoiled this version for me a little bit.
Oh no, man!
I saw the Love Sexy version first.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Sorry. And when I came back to listening to this was like, oh, I didn't realize this song was this low key, which is not something you would ever really describe this song as.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's the Prince live performance is better than the album version.
Yeah, I mean, that guitar, the guitar solo he gives on that Dortmund thing, where he's basically like scratching his ass.
Yeah, that was so
with
weird.
One hand, scratching his ass with one hand.
Had he unclipped his suspender and he kept going down to try and reclip it? I couldn't work out what he was trying to do there.
I don't know what it was, but I was living and I was 100% here for it. Like, I don't know. Maybe he got something from his sister and he needed a scratch. like
possibly.
But like, all I'm saying is that performance. Not only the guitar he was playing was absolutely beautiful, the costume he was wearing was so good, and I tried to emulate that in, which we'll speak about in other episodes.
Oh well, there might be an episode coming up where you can talk about that.
Absolutely. You know, the arrangement, like, it was just so loud, and the way that they extended it out, and you know, they brought it out from a vamp of Jack You Off into Sister. That the way that band did that arrangement was just, oh my god. Like, so when I went back to listen to this, like to kind of bring it back to the album, I initially thought it was a bit low key, but then, you know, I actually thought there was a little bit more storytelling in this version and a little bit more emoting, not to overblow it or give it too much drama, but you know, a brave little decision after Head. Like, you don't think it's got, I think it's almost like you hear, you know, like he does this kind of this filthy songs, like really push the boundary, and you think it's going to come back now and give you a respite. It's like, no, I'll push it a little further.
Or it's like the whole trench coat reference. It's like, what's under the trench coat?
Like,
and it's like, aha! It's that.
Sister was the last button on the head on the trench coat.
And there's sort of an abandon when he hits shown in his little thing he does in his guitar playing when he's like got a funny way of stopping the juice, and he does like an octave. I think it's I can't remember what key it's in, but it almost sounds as if he's playing like an open E string and then sort of plucking the B and the E, the higher B and the E. Got a funny way of stopping the juice. Boom, king. It just like the abandon that he throws at it. I just think it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Fearless. So was Party Up the other one you wanted to take on first, Lee?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Party Up is great. The other thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this, when I talked about the visual style of the album, it's also how he embraces graffiti. And obviously, graffiti was art, the art coming through at that time. And obviously, the single cover of Uptown is just black with Uptown sprayed on over the top of it. So he's embracing, the popular culture of disco, funk, but also the visual elements of graffiti coming through, and a little bit of hip hop and R&B coming through.
And the fact that it's not a typeface, it was actually sprayed on Wendy and Lisa's apartment wall.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, the whole, because I've used, when I've designed stuff, like Prince related stuff, I've used that whole, idea of graffiti and partying up. I've used the track in promo stuff as well. And that links me to the parties because it's, party up and getting people ready to go to a party, and absolutely love it. And I was, you went with the Chaz and Dave reference. It's very Cliff Richard's Wired for Sound. No.
What the? Okay, I thought I was going left field. Cliff Richard's Wired for Sound.
No, but it's that whole like I said, disco era of party up,
I'm not gonna stop you there. I'm just turning off this microphone. I'm gonna walk away.
I'm only joking. It was just your Chaz and Dave reference. It's just...
oh god.
No, Party Up is definitely a good. I'd expect it to be higher up in the track list actually, but it's a bit more closer to the front than at the back, if that makes sense.
But I like the way it ends the album. I mean, it's a perfect closer. I mean, it would work as an opener or a closer, but I think if as an opener, that extended chant might drag.
Yeah.
Doing the band, this is a song I'd love to have in the band. I've always had this thing about you have a bunch of closers that you could sort of choose from if you were in a position to choose on the night, and then like stuff like you obviously there's all your Purple Rain, Kiss 99 stuff, but like Party Up would be one of them, The Cross, all that kind of thing. I just think there's a handful of songs gold, but this is just the thing I would say I think quite suits the last track is the way that it goes out with the sort of vaguely London's Burning multi-vocal. And I love the chant. That whole chant thing's really nice. But there was that brilliant Saturday night. Was it Saturday Night Live?
Yes, SNL. I was about to say, performance, where he just kills it.
Did they all run off at the end or something? It was really fantastic performance. Yeah. And then there was this like massive, ridiculous urgency to it. And then at the end, they all ran off. It was really good.
Yeah.
And did Morris play drums on the original recording, or was it a Morris drum part or something?
It's Morris Day's song.
It's his song completely, right?
He's co-writer on it, isn't he? Really
it's the song that creates the time.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Wow.
I really want to hear Morris Day's demo.
Yeah, would be
I want to hear what Prince heard to go, okay, Morris, that song is so good, I want it from my album, and I'll get you a band. You can have the money or the band. And I want to hear what Prince heard to make his own version. Because I want to know how much of it is because it's such a Prince song that I kind of want to hear what parts are Morris Day and what parts are Prince.
Yeah.
Interesting. And the bass line. Oh.
Yes. Yeah. And the guitar parts are very minimal. But lovely with it. It's sort of obscure little chord phrasings. Really nice though.
Yeah.
But not shaped in the way Head is like a groove. It's this sort of frantic stabs at things, and that's just a different style altogether.
To answer your question, Paddy, yeah, he knocks the mic over and they all run off.
Yeah. I just think it, and it just that vibrant, urgent thing. Yeah. Well, it's like as the lyrics say, right? Revolutionary rock and roll. We've got revolution to get to and sort out here. We've played for you. We're off. Bye. It's that. Yeah.
It's that the frantic ways it says, "Down with war, party up, 1, 2, 3."
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much this happens in this album, where it's that kind of where it does that build and fall down, like the kind of crescendo, and I don't want to die, I just want to have a money do, boom, like there's so much of this is like crescendoing and falling back onto a groove. I didn't realize how much this album was built on that.
It's almost like a hit and run, literally, metaphorically. It's the length of it, short tracks. It's punch, punch, punch.
Yeah. What a great first line as well. We don't give a damn. Just wanna jam.
Yeah.
I could just there's so many moments in this groove. There's a bit where it just kind of starts grooving with the bass, where it's that we get ice cream, no cake. It's just the way that the bass subtly moves underneath there is just chef's kiss, just awesome. And that kind of that vocals towards the end. It's interesting how the Rainbow Children references this album like in two ways, because it has a similar ending after the same December, where it's like 1 1 1 1 1. You just have the vocals coming off at the end, and the other, and it's a pivotal album for sure. It earns its place in the greats, and it is a great launch pad for what Prince becomes.
It's the start. It's the starting block for his. He's literally just stepped off the starting block.
It's such a kind of within its threshold leap of Prince becoming Prince. It's liberating to listen to. And it does it. We've already been talking about this album 3 times longer than the album is, pretty much. We've probably still got much to say, but yeah. So round up of the album, Lee, where does this?
One of my go-to 80s albums, definitely, and just a lot of positive memories. And from a creative graphic design point, it's one of my favorite visuals. The whole photography and like I said earlier, with the graffiti and the black and white pictures and stuff as well. So it's definitely, like I said, it's the For You Prince, For You, For You Prince, and then this. I think this is the one where it's like, okay, wow, this is who this guy is, or this is who the guy is going to be, and the groundbreaking that he started. With the albums, the lyrics, the content, the visual content, the audio content. It's definitely
the character.
It's literally it's the start of things that we've been lucky to see over the years.
Blimey. Well, massive album. Prince didn't walk to the edge of the cliff and peer over in terms of daring. He then proceeded 6 feet into midair and floated and smashed out of the park. Incredibly brave, to some degree taboo smashing because of who he was, the time he was, and what the expectations of things you heard on the radio were at that time, and the mixing of genres with what might or might not have been obvious for a certain artist to do. He didn't care, because he was creating his flag. He was showing, this is who I am going to be as a musician. I'm going to be spiritual. I'm going to be sexual. I am going to mix different types of music. I'm not going to be predictable. I'm going to do what I want to do. And so he did. There was a quote. I read an article in Rolling Stone about this album, and the quote that hit me was, "Nobody knew what was going on, and I became totally engulfed in it. It really felt like me for once." That's it, really. And what came out was just amazing. And so to what you say as well, that dichotomy of it's cold for the space, but it's warm in other ways. Just brilliant. And it goes back to what we said earlier about the end of the album. It's fucking revolutionary rock and roll. It's just amazing.
I think before this, we people liked listening to Prince. I think with this, people were interested
Yeah,
in Prince. After this is with the start of people becoming, who the hell is this guy? Rather than, he's a really talented guy, isn't he? And this is like, this is, like the start of the self mythologizing, the taking from so many, the ambiguity, the taking from so many different musical, cultural, and social scenes to create a new one that had a space for all of you. I
yeah, it was
mean,
inclusive.
yeah, that was inclusive, and I think it was sensible of him to have it as a Loki album that people found rather than were presented with, because I think that makes the invitation all the more honest in a way. Kind of, if you're inviting, like, you could be in the fan club of the next big thing, Don't Get Left Behind. I don't think that works with the kind of people that were going to be interested in this album. It was like, have you heard about this? Listen to this. Worked so much more with this kind of uh invite into a world. And I think this is where we start to see the real mystique of Prince start to be the foundations for the real mystique of Prince that we've been trying to unravel as fans start to solidify and take place. It just so happens that not only did those elements exist on this record, it just happens to be a really great sounding, played, performed, constructed, written record as well, with a killer cover, killer lyrics, and just an all-round fresh air about it. I mean, you can really feel that threshold leap of an artist leaping into their own about this. And I'm not saying it's a record that I play all the time, and this is the thing, but every time I play it, I love it now. Like, once that kind of the key of what it was kind of was open to me, like from the listening, I mostly listen to this on record because I like to take the time to listen to this record. I usually like to this album. I tend to put this. This isn't one I listen to like on the kind of streaming on the way to work. This album is a kind of like, I take the time out to kind of read the liner notes and stuff like that. So because it's so short, it's worth the concentration while it's there. Okay, so that was Dirty Mind. Thank you so much for listening to us talk for 3 times longer than the actual album was. So you spent 3 times longer listening to us than you did listening to Dirty Mind. So thank you for that much for your time. This has been the PPUK Podcast. Thank you, and see you next time.
Good night.
Bye.